Men who have sold/donated sperm and gave permission for the child to contact you at 18. What is your story? So, I'm not the dad, but a kid. So my bio dad donated sperm and gave permission to be identified. Didn't even have to be after 18. In counting, because we're not sure if we found all of us yet, there are 53 half-siblings, all his kids. My full sister and I didn't know we were donor babies until I was a freshman in college, and her a junior in high school. It was a few more years before we found out the scope of our family. As such, I never got to meet the man as he passed away in 2018, but I've been getting to know my half-siblings and I'm sad to have missed him. He apparently engaged in annual reunions and was interested in getting to know all of the kids if they, and their families, were open to it. We all support each other basically by default even though we didn't grow up together. What's even wilder about him is that he got national news coverage for something besides his giant flock of kids. The guy got married to a woman the day he met her as a competition to be his bride in the Mall of America. It was apparently a heartfelt story and the two of them had a 20-something-year marriage with 4 kids that they raised themselves. The Mall of America even has a plaque with his name on it now, so you can go find him if you really try. The man was a weirdo, but in the best way. He was kind and generous with his time and really seemed to care about all of his kids, or at least the ones he knew about. This is bananas to me, but not because of the number of children. But because my mom was co-workers with your bio dad's wife. My mom shared that exact Moa story to me, and it inspired The Bachelor. He was diagnosed with cancer at the time and that's when my mom shared their amazing story. Never knew this part about him though. Reddit is such a crazy place. I remember the story of Married at First Sight at the Mall of America. I've been to the mall many times and walked past the area they had their wedding. I was at the mall the day your dad got married. I didn't realize he had passed. I'm actually bummed to hear that. A guy I know in his 70s got a call from a guy in his 50s saying, "Hey, I'm your son. Oh, and I just learned I have a genetic disease, so your other kid should probably get tested." Credit to the guy in his 50s if that's the reason he called, just to warn his bio dad's family. Class move. I experienced something similar. I was adopted as a baby and had no contact with my bio family, beyond my mom visiting a couple times when I was too young to remember. Out of the blue when I was around 13, we got a letter from her sister, explaining that my grandma had just died of diabetes and that I should be aware it ran in the family. My own mom couldn't be bothered to warn me, but her sister that she hasn't spoken to in decades stepped up and did it. My aunt and I exchanged letters and ended up meeting when I was about 22. Still haven't contacted my mom. Edit because spelling is hard. This was very thoughtful of her and probably a hassle to do. That's seriously such a kind gesture and it's good, you know. Nice of him to reach out and share that info, especially if any of the guy's other kids did have it and getting tested helped catch it earlier. I donated for 6 months in university. Twice a week. I gave consent to be contacted. That was close to 20 years ago now. I did call and ask once. My sperm resulted in 24 successful pregnancies. That was all the office could tell me. I have not done 23andMe or anything like that. Edit, added a missing word. Sitcom title, 24andMe. 27andMe. Had 3 of my own. I find it ironic that donating sperm is usually something people do only when they need money. However, by past society and nature standards, the simple fact of having 24 kids makes you a wildly successful male specimen. They are pretty picky about who they'll let donate. Height requirements, education requirements, medical requirements, no criminal record, etc. Then the recipients get to choose the donor based on their profile. Unsurprisingly, the most prolific sperm donors are like 6'2" white Harvard students. Do they get paid more for the sperm? Like if I'm a successful 6'2" white athlete who went to Harvard, can I command a high premium for my sperm? I can fulfill my genetic purpose and get paid. Some species quite literally die just to do so. I was donor conceived. I took a DNA test, his natural-born daughter took a DNA test. So really neither of us gave permission. There are 28 siblings so far. It was quite a shock. I wasn't expecting it and didn't know. I was 38. I've met the donor and most of the half-siblings. He's a cool guy. I think it is eerie how I see many of my mannerisms in him and the other siblings. I know there is a wide range of emotions for people who experience this sort of thing, but for me it was generally positive. It is incredible how the similarities are passed down. My father-in-law had a daughter that was the result of a one-night stand and was adopted by a wonderful family. The adoption agency had a registration of birth parents and kids, who could each, blind to the other, give permission to be contacted, and only if both parties did, they'd put them in contact. So this happens in her early 20s, and they make arrangements for her to fly to meet her birth family, including my wife and her brother, her half-siblings. My wife goes to pick her up at the airport since the parents live out of town. There were no arrangements, no pictures, nothing. This was pre-Facebook. My wife saw her come out the doors, knew without question it was her, and she knew the same. They had a huge tearful hug without even any words. They just knew, by looks, by mannerisms, whatever. The incredible thing is, I've shown pictures of the half-sister, with or without her birth father and half-sister, and everyone agrees she doesn't actually look much like them. But there's something about the looks and how they act that is so similar between all of them, it really is incredible. Edit. One more detail. We found out years later that the father and daughter contacted the agency to open themselves up to contact, within 24 hours of each other. A complete coincidence. The agency actually didn't do it for a couple weeks because they were trying to contact the daughter's adoptive parents, who had passed away, hence the delay, because they just assumed there had been contact since they were in touch so impossibly close together. I definitely think there's a huge nature component in people's mannerisms. My partner has never met his bio dad, but his mom also says it's uncanny how much he acts like him sometimes. But on the flip side, nurture seems to play a pretty big role too, because I see a lot of his stepdad, who adopted him when he was 8, in him as well, just in the way that he acts, his sense of humor and all that. My stepmom was an early donation conceived baby. She's done 23andMe and Ancestry. Last I heard she was up to 23. Half-siblings. Their donor father died in the late 1980s and seems to have been a good man. So since there's 23 other siblings, she can say there's 23 in me, right? DNA testing makes the permission difficult to enforce. My friend's dad donated in the 80s and some of his offspring recently reached out to him after DNA testing. I'm adopted and my closest match on Ancestry tried to extort me for $5,000 to give me information about my biological siblings. I refused and still can't find them. Edit. Since I got a lot of messages and stuff about this, I uploaded a screenshot of her comments. To add some additional context, my birth mother doesn't want to meet, so I have been attempting to gather information about my siblings who were also adopted in a closed adoption. Rather than share any information she had about my siblings, she offered to give me my mother's information for $5,000 against my mother's wishes as well, and then called me a dumb butt when I refused. Edit 2. I reached out through the adoption agency when I was 18 to attempt to contact my mother, and she communicated at the time that she did not want to contact me. I know that this person is actually related to me and my mother because of DNA testing and because of information that my cousin would only know if she were in contact with my mother. I wonder what it's like to have a black pit instead of a soul. This is shameful, I'm so sorry. As a birth mom, I have to be honest, not all reunion stories go well. But that is egregious. How did it go with the outreach? 2 of the children's parents were lesbians, so they were aware of the situation, and reaching out went well from their perspective. My friend's dad was okay with it. My friend's mom was struggling a bit, understandably. The other 2 children had no idea and just had DNA tests done and were shocked to find out. Last I heard, they were still processing things. At my job, we did a media interview with a guy who donated sperm at least once a month for the money throughout most of his 20s, nearly 10 years. He recently found out that there is a Facebook group with over 100 women from all over the world that have had children from his donated sperm. Edit. This was an interview about his whole story, not a job interview where it just randomly came up. It was for an internal video made for TV executives and writers to potentially create a TV show based off his story. There's a sperm donor suing the company because they used his sperm so much and in a concentrated area. They are afraid of accidental inbreeding. It was over 30 kids that they know about. In 23and subreddit, some dude found out his girlfriend of 5 1 year was actually his sister. Both were sperm donor babies. Edit. Year was wrong. Link for 23and case. Web link. There was a fertility doctor called Donald Klein who used his own sperm to impregnate his IVF patients without their knowledge. He fathered at least 50 children, all in the same state I think, and it all started to unravel thanks to these genealogy sites and DNA kits. His only consequence was losing his license, because technically, what he did wasn't a crime. But it definitely should be. One of his children called it medical rape, which is pretty accurate, since none of the women he impregnated consented to being impregnated by him. The whole case is gross. Edit. Klein was caught around 2017. Web link. If I'm thinking of the same guy, it was exposed because he was being investigated for giving women fake fertility treatments first. He'd lie and tell them they were pregnant, and when they got their next period, he told them it was a miscarriage. Some women who were trying for babies thought they had had dozens of miscarriages, all because this guy would lie and tell them they were pregnant. A local journalist was looking into it, and when they talked to a former receptionist, she was as if you know all the sperm samples, are he right? He would tell them he was going to get a sample from storage and literally just pop to the bathroom and create a sample. The local courts kept a record of who his children were, so when they were older they wouldn't end up dating each other. Pretty sure you're thinking of Cecil Jacobson. Same kind of scumbag, different dude. Klein lied that he used either the woman's partner's sperm or a med student's. Klein's case started unraveling in like 2017 because they had all started to match on ancestry sites. The kids were interviewed by Dr. Phil. They are still finding new people affected by this. It's really heartbreaking. To find out you were conceived by sperm donor is one thing, but finding out your dad is a huge butthole is so much worse. Telling a woman she had a miscarriage when she hasn't is a special kind of horrible. If hell exists, it's made for people like this. That's nuts. That's sad. Imagine thinking about building a life with someone to find out your half-siblings. They could always get a sperm donation. And it turns out being the dad's sperm again. It's the circle of life. And make daughter sisters? I wonder what his profile said to make it so appealing to so many women. Donor sites show success rates and the possibility of having bio-sibs, i.e., will this donor be willing to donate again so you can have multiple kids, etc. So that's usually how this happens. 4 women had lived births. Awesome. Generally a well filled out profile with medical details, etc. Obligatory, not me, but I don't think I'll get another chance to tell the story. An ex-girlfriend of mine has an uncle who had donated sperm back in the 90s. At some point, he started reaching out to the parents of his biological children to see if they wanted to meet their bio dad, and now, every summer, he flies out all the children who wanted to be in contact to Yosemite, California for a week of camping. I remember the first, and only, time I went, I was shocked to know that at least 10 of his children come every year from all around the USA to spend time with him for a week. Apparently, the year I went with them was also the year that another one of his bio children got in contact with the uncle for the first time and spent the week out near Yosemite with all of her half-brother sisters. I don't keep in contact with the uncle or my ex anymore, but I can assume that more of his children have contacted him each year so they can spend time getting to know their bio dad. That's a future movie plot right there. This actually reminds me of the movie. A guy discovers that he is the father of 533 children and some are looking for him. They eventually start to become friends and do stuff together. Web link. The American version with Vince Vaughn. Web link. Really liked this movie. Funny enough, both Fonzie and Delivery Man are remakes of a French-Canadian comedy. Although one of the original writers helped out on the US remake. Web link. Somewhat related, but I've got a brother from another mother and have a happy story to share. My dad had a kid with a lady in the 80s, she didn't want to keep it and he didn't want to be a single dad, so he was put up for adoption and they split up and go about their days. There's likely a lot more to the story, but I've only ever been told my dad's side, so I'll leave it at that. Fast forward, till to 30 years, my dad has settled down and now has a family of 5 kids with my mom. He gets a call from a nonprofit asking if he'd provide his information if his kid wants to reach out. He does, and goes about his day. Fast forward a few months, he gets a call from his son, initially wanting to learn about possible health causes and curiosity. He ended up getting adopted by an amazing family and doing very well for himself. He wants to come to town and meet my dad. Dad has 5 awkward conversations, his kids explaining we had another brother and he was coming up to visit. Note, a running insult when we were growing up was calling each other adopted, which pissed Dad off a lot, laughing out loud. Fast forward 2 weeks, there was a graduation this weekend and we're having all the family over, so was a good time for him to come up and meet the guy. Great person, hit it off and still are close with all the brothers. Everything worked out pretty well, all things considered. He's a spitting image of Dad and really great friend. His parents are amazing people as well. Really lucky to have him in my life. Man, as someone who is adopted and knows his birth father has a family with 3 sons younger than me, there's nothing more I want than for something similar like this to happen. That being said, I'm aware that I was a mistake made by a couple young kids and I respect their courage to go through with the birth and find me an incredible home. I've done some reaching out and through third-party sources, I've learned that I am most likely a secret that has never been shared. They're all from an incredibly small town. I've seen pictures of my brothers and I looked exactly like each of them during those stages of life. It's mind-blowing to me to know I have blood relations somewhere out there. That being said, I respect their privacy and their decision. I have no intention of causing turmoil or stress. Part of me has just always wanted to know more about the families I actually came from. P.S. I was raised by 2 incredible parents that have shown selflessness I can't fathom for someone/thing they didn't even conceive. I wasn't adopted into a financially rich family, but I have an incredible wealth of moral grounding and have been taught that empathy and compassion are the 2 greatest strengths someone can have. I love my parents. Curiosity has just always gets the best of me. Holy cow, we have a remarkably similar story. Just change the facts too. Parents had kid in late 1950s and it was a girl. They were pretty much forced to put her up for adoption back then. Fast forward 30 years and the daughter was pretty stoked to find out her biological parents ended up together and she had 5 full-blood siblings. We were naturally surprised to find out about another sister, but it ended well. We get along and it was like she was always there, part of the gang. Man, these stories got me all misty-eyed. I come from a very broken family. It's so wonderful to hear about happy ones that are able to make it through adversity. I'm genuinely so giddy you all were able to find each other. Wishing y'all many more happy years together. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.